am Amy Vetter, and welcome to the Breaking Beliefs podcast. This valuable time is for you to pause in your day and go on your own self-journey. Discover the beliefs that are holding you back from living your best life at work and at home. Learn from the guests on this show as they share their inspirational stories on how they found ways to break internal beliefs that were no longer serving them. Because if you believe you can, you will. And our podcast begins now. Welcome to this episode of Breaking Beliefs, where I interview Dr. Jackie Meyer, who is a 40 under 40 honoree with CPA Practice Advisor, a pioneering serial entrepreneurial speaker. She focuses on practical solutions that enhance tax and financial literacy, from recruitment and retention to leveraging AI in accounting firms. As the former founder of an award-winning CPA firm, she now leads TaxPlanIQ, a SaaS tax advisory platform that was part of AICPA's 2023 Accelerator cohort, and is writing a book on the balance sheet of life. Her innovative ROI method of value pricing emphasizes aligning pricing with client value. She addresses cultural and workaholism issues to prevent burnout and turnover. She speaks to tens of thousands of financial professionals and taxpayers annually, providing transformative solutions for entrepreneurs to thrive. Her mission is to improve health, wealth, and relationships for all. During this interview with Jackie, we go through her journey from moving out when she was 15 years old to eventually becoming a CPA and getting her doctorate to now running TaxPlanIQ. We discuss the mental health struggles that so many of us encounter as work and family converge and are trying to break the cycle of burnout. Listen to her story of creating success, having time for family, and guarding her boundaries and work-life balance. And just for the listener, we do talk about trauma, the traumas that occur between parents and their children, and also parts with addiction. So I just want everyone to be prepared for that when they listen to this episode, and make sure that if you are encountering any trauma in your life, that you involve a medical professional that is a therapist that can help you with the right course of action and the right medical plan to make sure that you are safe and that you create the right boundaries in your life as well. Welcome to this episode of Breaking Beliefs. I'm so excited to have my friend on here, Jackie Meyer from TaxPlanIQ. Jackie, do you want to give a little background on yourself before we get started?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me, Amy. I'm Dr. Jackie Meyer, CPA. You can call me Dr. J. No, I'm still working through that. I am currently founder and president of TaxPlanIQ, a SaaS software for accountants and financial advisors to do all things tax planning and advisory. But I'm also a recovering CPA firm owner, which I'm sure we'll get into today. And, got lots to discuss.
Awesome. Well, so excited to have you here. So why don't we just start with where you grew up? So where are you from? What did your parents do for a living?
Yeah, so I'm a native Texan. I'm currently in Southlake, Texas, which is close to DFW Airport. I was born in Austin. My dad was in IT engineering. He worked at TI, Texas Instruments, for many, many years. And my mom was a homemaker until she decided she wanted to go out on her own. So she divorced my dad. We moved to College Station. She was a single elementary school teacher. And me and my sister, who was 2 years older than me, we gained a lot of maturity and independence during those years because my mom struggled with some mental issues along the way.
So how did your mom become an elementary school teacher? Is that what she went to college for, or did she go back to school?
Yeah, she had a master's in education, and she also was a dance teacher. So she was doing dance lessons at home when she first had us. And then she kind of, got back into teaching once we moved.
Got it. And then your father, were you close with him before you moved or?
Um, yeah, we were. He eventually, met someone new and remarried, and that didn't work out so hot. So during our high school days, I was quite the wild child. And I moved out when I was 15 from my mom's
Really?
place. Yeah. And so we were not very close to him then. What's really fortunate though is that in college we reconnected with him, and he is a wonderful papa to my kids, Gabe and Alex, and he's here all the time. He's actually staying with us right now.
Oh, that's all. I, I think that does make a huge difference. Even if there's, trauma in the background, but when you can recover from it and move on in current
Mhm.
day, that makes such a big difference as far as the relationship and being able to get that back on track.
For sure. Yeah. It's been really a blessing to have him in our lives and to see him put so much effort and love into my kids is just, kind of makes up for everything.
Yeah. So how old were you when your parents got divorced?
I was about 6 years old.
Okay. So you moved away fairly young then.
Hmm.
Yeah. So when you said that your mom had mental health issues, what was going on with your mom at the time?
Well, I idolized her until you kind of like get old enough to realize that something's not quite right.
Yeah.
And so she always struggled with anxiety, and she would really get upset when there was some kind of potential weather thing going on, like a tornado coming our way. She would freak out. But the thing is that in the grand scheme of things, she lost her dad, my grandpa, when she was pregnant with me to a sudden
Okay.
heart attack in his mid 50s. And I think that that took her from like, she was like the head of her class in college, one of like the biggest, early risers. Of course, she wanted to be an attorney like her dad and her brother, but her dad didn't
Mm.
let her um due
Why?
to
Because she
just
was a woman?
yeah, because she was a woman, he wanted her to be a teacher. So, um, she, did what he wanted, but she lost him. She was very close to him. And I think that really just kind of completely flipped the script on her. I don't know if she ever truly recognized that grief. Um,
Hmm.
and so the anxiety grew and grew. And eventually, some counselors said it was schizophrenia. Um,
Mm.
it was just all over the place. And
Mm.
I actually don't speak to her right now, which is one of the,
Hmm.
hardest things in my life, but also one of
Yeah.
the best choices I've ever made. And
Hmm.
I encourage others, like, please don't think that blood is always, thicker. You have to be around your family all the time. If they're emotionally abusing you, they don't have to be physically abusing you. Um,
Hmm.
and whatnot, then you might need to take a break or step away permanently.
Yeah. I think it's such a hard discussion. I've gone through the same thing. I think we've maybe talked about it
We
in the
have,
past.
yeah.
But I think it's very hard. What I've found over time, and I will say this to the listeners of this, is people, for some reason, when you talk about a relationship with a father deteriorating, they're more understanding of that than a mother,
You're right.
unless
They
they
are.
have gone through that with a
Mhm.
mother. Because there's just, I think, such a strong bond between a mother and their child that for some people, just even imagining that it can be hard. So I do want anyone listening to understand that when you go through something like this and you have to put up boundaries, it's a extremely hard process to go through. Going through that process. So, what was the process that you went through to realize that you needed that?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that. It took many years.
Hmm. Yeah.
finally, I was, my husband was like, after the 50th time that she'd done something crazy, I think it was when my kids were little, she showed up randomly at my office, and she thought I had been kidnapped by my husband.
Mm.
And there was absolutely no
Yeah.
reason for this to be a thing at all.
Yeah.
So, the cops ended up showing up at our house. I wasn't home. I had already gotten to work, and Mark was there, and he was like, "Yeah, everything's fine." And I just internalized those kinds of things and was always trying to
Mhm.
help fix them when it's really not
Mhm.
fixable at a certain point with mental
Yeah.
illness.
Mhm.
And so my husband was like, I think you might need to just step away. And I knew if he said that, he's
Mhm.
very tight with his family and he
Mhm.
puts family above everything else. It
Yeah.
really made me second guess myself and be like, you know what? This isn't right. I also started seeing a counselor that
Mhm.
really encouraged me to set appropriate boundaries in my personal life, which is so
Mhm.
ironic because I'm like kind of the boundary queen when it comes to the business world. But that
Right.
always seemed really
Yes.
easy because it's like just
Yeah.
work relationships versus like
Yeah.
your mom, right?
There is a difference.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
I've realized that in my journey as well of like what's acceptable from like business kind of has its set of rules.
Mhm.
That like it's almost like everyone kind of buys into like the rule of engagement and how that works, but in your personal life there's no such thing, you
Right.
know, and unless that's been agreed upon. And if you've tried to agree upon it, with that, and your story about your mom, I know I went through similar where I was like, there has to be, I cannot have this pass on to my children. Like with
Mhm.
her too close to them, this is going to repeat. And I didn't
Exactly.
want another generation repeating. Um, but one of the things that always stuck with me was there was a person very early on in my career. It was just like one of those like one night dinner business trip. I never saw him again after that. And a story he told me during it was he had a very religious family, um, and his brother had run away. And then he ran away when he was 18 and joined a gang to have a family.
Wow.
Um, and and then when he finally got out of that and like had his own family, he called it a circle of trust
Mhm.
of no one can penetrate this. Like I have to protect these people, so that whatever is off in my life doesn't affect them. And I think that starts coming into play when you become a parent.
For sure. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because that was a big piece of it. It was different when I saw how she would interact with my kids and how anxious I would get and upset and mad and just all these awful feelings when she
Hmm.
would overly focus on things around me and the kids. And I was like, I don't want this to happen to kids. So you're right. Like the kids were young then, but I was starting to see those
Hmm.
signs of like, this isn't just going to impact me. I don't want my kids to have major depressive disorder, which I had since I was probably 10 or 11, or, anything like that to impact them. So I made that decision.
Yeah. So how did you, just going back to being 15 years old, where did you go? And what led you to
I
create that decision?
First I moved in with my boyfriend and his mom.
Okay.
And then my sister was 17 and she was moving out on her own. And I moved in with her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you and your sister kind of had made this decision to go out on your own for safety,
I did
or
it
what was it?
first. I did it on my own first. And then she like had found an apartment and stuff like that, and she was working at an apartment place leasing buildings, and so she had a good deal. It was a good like point in time for us to move in together, and so that's what we did.
Yeah. So you were still going to high school during this time. What did you think you were going to be when you grew up? Going through all this.
Nothing good. I mean, growing up in College Station, Texas, where A&M is, you're exposed to all of the college stuff, the drinking and everything really, really early. And my sister took on way too much responsibility as a teenager and ended up having pretty bad eating disorder and then alcoholism as well that affected her well into, just a couple years ago.
Mhm.
But I was always pretty smart. And so even though I was skipping enough school to have to go a week in detention, um, I was still making, like B's, and I mean, I would go to the
Mhm.
library. I would get these Stephen King novels, and I would just read like all during school. I couldn't trust anybody around me. I didn't want to interact with anyone there. I felt really out of place socially. Because I mean,
Why
imagine
didn't you
like if you
trust
can't
them?
trust your own parents, like how you
Mhm.
going to form appropriate relationships with others, right?
Right. How did college even come to be? Did anyone, let me, before I say that, so during this high school experience, did anyone stand out and give you an example or, somehow of like how you focused you were going to survive yourself?
Yeah. I really, really looked up to my sister because she was so responsible those days. Um,
Hmm.
I didn't really have a true like role model or mentor because I was, you know, a loner, right?
Hmm.
But I did realize like my mom was always worried about money. Being a
Hmm.
single teacher, it was like always her focus.
Hmm.
Money or men. She had a lot
Yeah.
of boyfriends too. And I was like, I think around 15 or 16, I was like, you know what? I am just deciding for myself that I'm always going to be able to take care of myself
Hmm.
financially and mentally. Like, I don't want to ever have
Hmm.
to rely on another individual. And I don't want, whether that's money or otherwise. And so I realized like I have to get a decent job to be able to do that. My dad being, an IT engineer in the business world, I kind
Hmm.
of, was like, well, that seems like a really steady way to go, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
So I ended up graduating high school a year early, and I went to college for my undergrad in finance.
How
And
did you pick that?
Uh, it was just what I thought would be stable. Business
Hmm.
seemed easy to deal with because there's not a lot of emotional aspects to it.
Right.
And I knew I could like financially be independent that way.
Hmm.
That was it. There was
Well,
no
yeah.
passion there.
Yeah. Yeah, but it did serve a purpose
For
for
sure.
you. So, yeah. So, how did you feel about business and finance as you were going through it?
I liked it. I was like, a smart aleck and wanted to be the smartest person in the room, and I loved like challenging the barriers of females. I always felt like I can do anything that a guy can do. And
Hmm.
so I was always like pushing boundaries. I mean, I started working at 15 as well. I started at like Marble Slab scooping ice cream. My sister was the manager there, before she went to the apartment complex. And then I did Chick-fil-A at the A&M Commons building. I was a Napa girl, which is pretty embarrassing. They're like, wear these tiny little Napa outfits and you're in a calendar, you drive these Napa auto
Oh,
trucks
wow.
around. Yeah. That my sister got me that job too. And then I actually ended up working at a mortgage company and wound up making my way up to loan officer at age 19 while I was doing my undergrad. And
Mm.
that was quite an interesting experience as well.
Mm-hmm. So what did you like about it?
There was a lot of flexibility, like in a world where I saw my parents having very strict schedules that they had to accommodate
Mm-hmm.
to for not as much money as they should have been making. The loan
Right.
officer thing is so independent, but it's so independent that, like, dang, if you don't know how to sell and like go out there and prospect and stuff like that, you're not going to do very well. And so,
Right.
I mean, I didn't do that great at it. But it did kind of start leading me more down the finance path. I switched over to Countrywide and then actually got in the back door at Deloitte of Dallas, and worked my way up into the high net wealth division. And so that's what kind of piqued my interest in taxes and tax planning. And I went back and got
Okay.
my master's in accounting at SMU.
Ah, okay. So you never did your undergrad in accounting. You went back for
Mm-mm.
your master's. Okay. Um, and then where did you go from there?
Well, let's see. I met my to-be husband, Mark, December of 2005 when I was graduating from my undergrad. He was just like the most stable, trustworthy rock of a person that you would ever meet.
Did it
Uh,
freak you out?
a little bit. I honestly, I was like, I think I was 20, I just turned 22. And I
Mm-hmm.
had already told myself that I was never going to get married. I'd given up
Mm-hmm.
on dating because I'd felt like I'd already had tons of boyfriends that were awful.
Yeah.
And I was like, so I was just out like having fun. I met him at this ugly Christmas sweater party. And he, asked me on a date and he was very, pursued me very strongly. And I was just like, whatever, this isn't going to go anywhere. And then it did. And, 18 years later, or almost, 19 years later, we're still together. So,
Oh, that's so nice. Yeah.
yeah.
So what did he teach you?
Oh gosh. Well, he taught me that people can be good and kind,
Mm-hmm.
um, and trustworthy,
Mm-hmm.
and that it's okay to have a family. So, I didn't actually want to have kids. Now we have an 8-year-old son and an 11-year-old daughter. I don't know what I'd do without them. Right.
Yeah.
So he really, changed things up. Now he's very much more of a worker bee than an entrepreneur type. And so that would
Mm-hmm.
cause a little friction here and there. When I would be like constantly butting heads at work, not realizing I was a
Right.
natural born entrepreneur.
Right.
And I would be like, and he'd be like, well, what's the big deal? Just go with the flow. I'm like, I can't go with the flow. That's not like who I am. So I actually ended up getting fired from a smaller CPA firm that I transferred to after Deloitte. Deloitte, I did like the bare minimum time. I was so upset with how they treated people, how they made us
What do you
come
mean by
in.
that?
So,
Oh,
oh
like the
man,
hours? Yeah.
oh, the hours were killer. Like it was this
Mm-hmm.
insane competition. Who would be there
Mm-hmm.
longest, even if it wasn't busy season?
Right.
Partners were nuts. I mean, they had some mental things going on. It just was like a really, really bad environment.
Mm. Yeah.
So I did that for like right at that 2-year mark. And then I found a smaller CPA firm that was about 25 people. One of the
Mm-hmm.
only independently women-owned firms of that size at the time in
Mm-hmm.
DFW.
Yeah.
And I went there. I went in as a senior tax consultant, kept pushing boundaries. And then finally, they were going through a bit of a financial rough patch and they
Mm-hmm.
decided to just can me in 2010.
So what did that feel like? for you
Oh, it
when
was
that
like the
happened?
worst feeling of my life. I remember calling my
Mhm.
dad and just like bawling.
Mhm.
And he says he encouraged me to go out on my own at the time, but I don't really remember like all the details of that conversation.
Right.
But it was really actually like the best thing that ever happened to me because I don't think I would have left. I felt a lot of
Mhm.
loyalty to that woman owner. And I
Right.
don't think I would have left and done all the things that I really wanted to do if they hadn't have canned me. So
Yeah.
I'm really appreciative for it now. I started working at CCH actually, or Wolters Kluwer, as
Oh,
like
okay.
a tax trainer and consultant.
Mhm.
So I had my like steady W-2 job. And then I just started working my own firm on the side. So I created my own
Mhm.
CPA firm and people really liked what I had to offer. I was so passionate about the work. I've always been so into saving people money. I think from
Right.
hearing my history, you can probably understand
Mhm.
why. Like I
Right.
love
Mhm.
not that knowledge being so powerful and being able to find people's savings within seconds. And I hate
Right.
the idea of people not utilizing the tax code to the fullest benefit. I feel like they're being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I really fell into that. Paid off 80K of student loans my first year in my CPA firm. And then quit CCH because it grew so quickly and kept growing from there. So it was pretty amazing time. I never thought looking back I would ever be able to like just have enough cash to pay off, $80,000 worth of any kind of debt.
Right. So at that time, you were doing mostly like tax compliance work.
Yeah, it was pretty traditional. I would do tax planning advice, but it
Mhm.
was like, 150 an hour. Um, would charge maybe $1,000 a year per client kind of thing. And so
Mhm.
my firm was growing pretty quickly and ended up kind of hitting over like 250 clients within a few years. And that would have been fine because I'm a really excellent workaholic if I hadn't have had kids. Um,
Right.
yeah. So having kids again kind of rocked my world. I got no time off. I planned both of my kids for December to avoid tax busy season. But what was I thinking? I didn't know anything about kids. I was having them right before tax busy season. That was awful.
Exactly.
So I went through a lot after having my daughter Alex, December
Mhm.
2013. That spring was like the worst. I mean, I was so burnt out. I was micromanaging. I had like 3 or 4 helpers at the firm, but I was still in the middle of everything.
Right.
And like honestly, I feel like I had a sort of a mental break in a way. Like my mental
Mhm.
capacity is just not I almost feel like it's half of what it used to be.
Right.
Um, but
And how what is it that you felt like at that point?
I
Like when you feel
felt
that way?
so tired
Mhm.
all the time. My
Mhm.
body hurt. Um, and ended up being diagnosed with chronic fatigue because that's what they tell you when they can't figure out what else is wrong with you.
Yeah.
So yeah. So now I spend tens of thousands of dollars on maintenance every year for that, but I'm in a much better place. So that's the good news.
Yeah. So what did you do to find your way out of it?
uh
So
I
had you gone to therapy at all prior to this?
I was not very receptive to it.
Mhm.
And I did not like feeling negative feelings.
Right.
I felt like if I started to feel them, they would never go away. Um, and so I realized, over the years through counseling and coaching and whatnot, that I mean, you have to allow yourself the time to sit through those negative feelings
Mhm.
and they
Mhm.
do go away, right? But
Yeah.
if you don't recognize them, then it's going to fester in your body. It's going to fester in your mind.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I mean, I
Your
did
health.
EMDR therapy. I've done
Mhm.
ketamine therapy. I've done all the therapy.
Yeah. What was the most effective for you?
EMDR was very effective
Mhm.
at kind of determining like where I got stuck in certain traumas as a child. Um,
Mhm.
but it was so draining and exhausting that it was
Yeah.
almost a full-time job to just do EMDR. And so
Yeah.
honestly, like I
You want to
hit a
explain what that is
plateau.
for people that don't know what EMDR is?
Oh, yeah. So it's like eye movement therapy. So you're working with a counselor, you close your eyes and they're like tapping your legs or something. And then they're essentially having you go back to find a memory that maybe you've been trapped in or trauma that you've been trapped in earlier in your life. And
Mhm.
I mean, we all have traumas. We all should have
Right.
be in counseling, right? Um, I think people minimize some of those traumas and that,
Yeah.
hurts them a lot more than helps them. But
I think that
um,
word itself seems like it has to be something extreme,
yeah,
but it's something that shifted you, right? Like
right.
whatever that was. And it's important to understand what those points are in your life so that you can acknowledge them and then decide how you want to move forward.
For sure. Yeah. So eventually, honestly, I kind of hit a cap or a wall with that.
Hmm.
And so I stopped doing that because I would just come home like so exhausted. It was hard for me to just like interact with my family and do all
Hmm.
my business stuff.
So then, how did you shift your practice so that you could manage all this
Oh,
better?
yeah. So, yeah, what did I do? How did I get out of that? So, I started going to conferences and trying to find people that I can learn from. Um,
Hmm.
I started accepting that like I didn't have all the answers. I couldn't figure it out on my own. And I came across a business coach. His name's Chuck Bauer. And we are like night and day opposites. He is like a very demanding dude. And I mean, I guess I'm pretty demanding too, but I don't know. I'm a little more friendly about it.
Yeah.
So he was offering these group masterminds and he's just like telling you like this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do, this is what you need. And he had these really practical steps and procedures you could take to form better boundaries at your firm or um, standardize your sales process, just basic stuff that like I hadn't done and that a lot of small accounting firms don't do. And that's
Hmm.
what really leads them to burnout. And so I was doing that. I was implementing pretty well. He said I was like a 90% implementer. But then I got pregnant with my second kiddo, Gabe, in 2016. And that's when I kind of had all these flashbacks of just having Alex and how bad it was and how I got no time off. And I was like,
Hmm.
I've definitely made incremental improvements to my practice, but I'm still overall burnout, which I
Hmm.
love your opinion on this, Amy. Like, I kind of feel like burnout is not necessarily curable. I think kind of once you hit it, there's always maybe long-term effects of it, or it's much easier to go back into burnout mode if it's happened to you before. I have this theory kind of around. I've been analyzing that lately, but it
Hmm.
seems like anyone I know that's been through burnout, they're never like 100% cured from the negative consequences that happen to them.
Well, I think it's important, at least in the work that I do with it, is to get behind the habit. Like you have to, it's almost like I think people try to fix the burnout, but not the belief system
Mhm.
and the programming that got you there. Right.
Mhm.
Like, so you have so many levels of like what's gone in on in your life. And you're like burning yourself out, but you're also got this belief system. I might lose everything. I might lose all my money. I might have a mental breakdown. Like all those things are sitting in your head. And until you solve that, the
Mhm.
habit that gets you into burnout keeps repeating itself. And so, I think what's hard for people is to actually get into the programming of it, understand how to shift that programming so that you can have a better outcome, if that makes sense.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I remember a couple people pointing out to me over the years in my firm that like my decisions seemed very fear based.
Hmm.
Um, a fear of losing
I lived
money,
that
a fear
too.
of going
Yeah.
crazy. Those exact two things. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah. 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 I mean, when you have gone through that of losing everything in your life, which I did too. My mom lost her business when I was in high school. And life changed I mean, we sold everything,
mhm,
um, down to my bedroom furniture. So, once you've gone through something like that and you're in a scarcity mode of like, working three jobs, trying to like get everything, so you can survive and still have the dreams that you want for your life. I
mhm.
don't think that leaves you easily, right?
Yeah.
Because that's a survival mode you had to go into. So it's really I remember kind of similar in your story. I, because I went through that when I had I wonder if I had my second child yet. But I started my business with my first son. And, but then I started my business and then I started doing adjunct teaching at colleges.
Mhm.
And then I added up to like three colleges plus the teaching. And it was like, I always wanted a backup to the backup to the backup. And
Yeah.
then, and I started the business so that I could have more flexibility in my schedule to be with my son. But then I was like totally running on fumes. And I
Right.
remember my ex-husband saying, like, if you can't make this work with your business, then go get a job. Like, because you're making this worse for yourself. And I did have to really like step back and say to myself, like, this is fear. Like, can
Mhm.
I do this without a safety net?
Mhm.
And what do you do to make sure like you're protected? So I don't know if you've gone through that yourself, but that's a lot harder to go through it without the safety net.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, from a like childhood perspective, we didn't have like one major event, like I know that you did with your mom's business. It was just like a constant scarcity mode all the
Hmm.
time. And as an adult, like I haven't heard it said that way, but I agree. Like you're doing the backup to the backup to the backup.
Hmm.
I mean, even once I fixed my firm, which was, I sold 60% of my clients. I realized in 2016 because I realized like I had to get rid of the ones that I wasn't bringing the best value to. I couldn't value price.
Hmm.
And to get my time back, get my life back.
Hmm.
But then I added coaching. I started coaching with my coach, Chuck Bauer,
Uh-huh.
and I started TaxPlanIQ. So I have businesses going as well. I'm doing much better with that. Chuck retired over a year ago now. And so we retired the coaching program. I sold my firm in 2022. And I stepped aside as the CEO of TaxPlanIQ last year so that I could really like know what it felt like to not have like every responsibility in the world. So
Right.
it's a work in progress, but I'm getting there.
Yeah. Well, and I do think with each thing, because at the time we were working through stuff with your business together at that, I think 2022
Mhm.
timeframe, 2023. Um, but what you did do is take some of the things that are most purposeful for you, which was the coaching, and
Mhm.
brought it into. So like I think a lot of times like people will, and this by in no means was a failure, but in anything we innovate or create and it doesn't work out in the way that we thought, we think, oh, it's like a failure, but it actually there's always like good pieces in there that
Sure.
you can utilize somewhere else. And that was
Mhm.
like a lot of the work that we were doing at the time of like, how can you bring this into TaxPlan IQ?
Yeah, you're
So, how
right.
has that felt to be able to bring it all together?
Oh, it's been amazing. I mean, yeah, once we kind of like hit the nail on the head, and I mean, last year we kind of fully implemented our top subscription program called the Growth Program, has coaching, one-on-one consulting, all that stuff included in someone's TaxPlanIQ subscription. And it is doing like killer. Like people
Yeah.
really needed that. And I was resistant. I was resistant to it, wasn't I? Because
you saw it as a separate thing.
yeah, I did. I saw it as a separate thing. But, you know, the little secret for SaaS companies or any company is the human element. And I mean, that's what's going to keep us shining as AI takes over more and more compliance. And so, yeah, that was a really, really good move for sure.
And knowing like where your purpose is. So as much as you love the tax part of it and tax advice, what you really love is being able to see the transformation in people. And so we don't have to be like 100% good at everything. We need to find like where our lane is and then find the people that are really good in the other lanes,
For sure.
which is a hard thing to do. So how has that been to shift that mindset from having to control all of those three things?
Oh, that's a loaded question, Amy. That's a tough one. I guess side note, as I redirect, because I don't know how to answer that exact one yet.
Yeah.
What I didn't mention is that as a kid, I actually wanted to be a counselor. Because I really wanted to help people with their mental health because I couldn't solve the familial problems that I was having. But I steered completely away from that because I was so worried about being emotionally attached to people or whatnot, right? But what was so neat is that by doing the coaching with accountants, I felt like my life kind of came full circle because I was able to help them with their businesses and help them overcome these really awful like emotions and burnout and things like that. But there was still that little layer that kept me from, getting way too into their personal lives, right? And so it was just like, it was so nice. Like I felt like everything kind of came together because I've always really wanted to help people. But I also have that barrier where, a very strong internal belief that I need to protect myself. And so, but that was cool.
Yeah. Well, I do think that is an extremely important lesson in any kind of consulting, coaching, accountant relationship, whatever it is. As a yoga teacher, and I've certified, I don't even know how many yoga teachers at this point, but part of the training is to make sure that you know how to sit beside someone, but not let it pour into you too much, that to know your lane. And so if someone needs a therapist, that you're saying like, I'm at my limit and this is actually for someone else. And I would say this also, I've, talked to a lot of managers and companies that become mentors, and people aren't really trained to do those things. And then people start sharing things with them and they're getting emotionally involved. And it's like, there has to be a line between what coaching is and making sure someone's protected with a medical professional when they need it.
Yeah.
And us as well, right? Like,
oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, and honestly, like that all comes back to appropriate boundaries. Like what, and one of the best books of all times, if anyone's identifying with this boundary, problem at all, is Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud. I mean, he really he talks about kind of taking on other people's responsibilities that don't belong to you and the weight of that rock on your shoulders. He just makes it so easy to understand across personal and business life. And yeah, I was so codependent with my family members that I was taking on all of their, emotional turmoil constantly.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that you weren't supposed to do that.
Yeah. Well, I think having, we've had some similar situations. I I know for me that it was very much about just trying to keep everyone together. Like, I'm like, if we just do this, we'll get there. If we just do that,
Mhm.
like, we can do it, and like when you're I do think there's certain things you're born with of where you can like keep reinventing yourself and keep pushing yourself, but not everybody's born with those
Yeah.
things. And you think because you can do it, that other people can do it. And I think that's what ends up happening is you like start holding everyone together and then the rubber band breaks.
Mhm.
And so it's one of those things where it's been a learning for me still always of like where does my boundary need to be in each relationship so that you are protected and you get the most out of that relationship, but your expectation isn't more than what someone else can handle
For sure. Yeah,
or what
that
you can
makes
handle.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so what have you seen with TaxPlanIQ as far as its growth and evolution since you started it?
Oh, it's amazing. Check back with me, a year or two from now, because it's like just the future is so bright. I mean,
Hmm.
we're hitting 500 firms that we're working with on our SaaS subscription model. The last year has been all about implementing the training programs alongside the
Hmm.
software, but also automating the tax planning process.
Hmm.
So I've gotten it down this spring to where you upload a client's 1040 PDF. It literally reads, analyzes, and proposes strategies in like 60 to 180 seconds. So within like 3 minutes, you not only
That's
have
awesome.
all these strategies adding up to tens of thousands of dollars based on those missed opportunities on the return. You have the pricing methodology I created called the ROI method of value pricing that's suggesting how to price that plan. And you're creating proposals, presentations, tax plan reports all within like literally 3 minutes. It's just like mind blowing.
That's
And
very cool.
yeah, and it's just so hard to get accountants because they are stuck in this compliance race to move to tax planning. And this is just like one more thing that's going to fuel us to be like, you can do it. Just
Right.
we're
Yeah.
adding bulk upload of returns right now. We're literally going to tell you, like, give us 100 returns. We'll tell you which ones look like the best opportunities.
Hmm.
And then just focus on
Wow.
one or two of those, you know?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So it really eliminates like every burden or excuse as to why people, don't or can't do tax planning, which I think is the future of the profession.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think uh what I see, and this is really anything, but I would use this category because if I'm used to doing tax compliance and really people are just calling me because I'm compliance and I have to get my tax return done. I'm not used to business development. Like you're an entrepreneur
Right.
and like are at ease with those conversations. So how do you get people past or over that like to be when they think of selling as a bad word,
Yeah.
but to be able to get past like I can do this and it is helpful.
Yeah. Okay. So, first of all, I like to try to reframe selling as like serving
Hmm.
because I hate selling. I'm an extreme introvert. People don't know that about me because I'm so passionate and so driven in the work I do, right? So
Right.
all of these bad and good and all the things that have accumulated me to the life that I'm at now have made me into this person that really cares about those specific crazy little niche things, right? Like tax
Hmm.
planning and strategies. Um, and so that passion always tends to kind of outweigh um, that little introverted Jackie that's like, you don't want to talk to people today. But also, Like I literally made it so foolproof because the ROI method sells itself. Like you
Mhm.
literally, I mean, I used to do this in Excel before I created TaxPlanIQ. It's like, hey, I think we can estimate about 50K of tax savings for you based on things you haven't been doing for years that you should have been.
Right.
Our fee is 10 grand or, whatever that ROI proposition is. And it's a net return on investment. It's win-win. And you have clients like you show them that in like a couple minutes and they're like, why wouldn't I be doing this? Like
Right.
it's just an investment in me, right? And so
Right.
it's one of those business lines or structures that I know, like our CEO now at TaxPlanIQ, Dave, always says is just like win, win, win across the board. The clients win,
Right.
the accountant wins, and everyone wins. It's so fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'd like to at the end just do some rapid fire questions. So you pick a category.
Oh, okay. Well,
Uh,
I made you do lightning round on my concierge
yeah.
CPA show. So yeah, here it comes back on me. Here
Here
we
it
go.
comes. Yep. Family and friends, money, spiritual, or health.
Am I just picking one that's important?
Pick a category. Yeah.
Oh gosh. I would say health, but I'm cheating because my final doctorate project was a book on balance in life. And I think that there's 4 health categories. So there's subcategories of health. There's financial, there's time, there's
Yeah.
social, and there's, oh gosh, what was the 4th one? I don't know. But,
Spiritual or joy. Yeah. Okay. Things or actions I don't have that I want with my health.
Oh, I would say I need to get into a good workout routine, but I hate working out. Okay.
Hmm.
Which is hard to admit because all of like the best performers in the world are like these amazing athletes and whatnot. But I did find the quickest, most efficient workout possible called Exercise Coach. And so my
Okay.
husband and I have been going and doing this AI strength training 20 minutes twice a week for
Okay.
about 5 or 6 weeks now. And I'm feeling strong. Like I'm excited about that. So yeah,
Okay.
I'm feeling good
Awesome.
there. I think I could still probably increase my vitamin levels and making sure that I'm eating really healthily throughout the day. But I do supplement. I have bars and whatnot because I know sometimes I'm prone to skipping meals.
Okay. Things or actions that I do have that I want to keep as far as my health.
I regularly go to many different kinds of doctors to make sure that I'm at like optimal state.
Hmm.
Most recently, I was feeling really tired. I have hypothyroidism,
Hmm.
along with the chronic fatigue, but it turned out just through the blood work that my B12 and iron were really low too. And so I started doing shots every other week, and that's really like increased my energy levels in general and my brain fog. So I definitely want to
Oh,
keep up with that.
awesome. Things or actions I don't have, but I don't want to have it.
I don't work any overtime. I don't work any nights and weekends. Last
Hmm.
night, I mentioned to my husband, like, I have 3 presentations that are due tomorrow and your podcast interview. And then I'm interviewing someone on my podcast. And I was like, so much to do. And he's like, yet you're watching Hallmark movies. And I'm like, yeah, I don't work nights. You know that.
I
And
get
I
you.
made
Once
it
you
work
stop, you
today.
have to stop. Yeah. It will
Yeah.
all work itself out.
Yeah. It'll
Okay.
all work itself out.
Yeah. Last one. Things or actions that I do have that I don't want, that I want to get rid of as far as my health.
Oh, we have we have 5 animals in our household. And they are a closeted terror. I don't know how that goes to actions, but like I can literally smell. I think one of the cats peed in the hallway. We have got to figure out what's going on with our animal situation because they are the best friends in the world, but like it's something's off here. So I need help. Let me know.
Yeah.
How do I fix that?
Awesome. Well, is there anything that we haven't talked about or that you want to stress before we close out today?
No, I really appreciate the time with you. I'm definitely have empathized with you over some common scenarios in our past and really admire the work you're doing. I love digging this deep. I feel like every year I feel like I can share more and more authenticity around myself. And it's almost healing to be able to talk about these things. So I really hope that someone listening or watching has found some insight there. I had a former coaching student reach out just a few months ago on social, and he was like, I'm feeling like you mentioned in coaching that you felt back in the day, and I don't know what to do. I was like, oh, I can finally help somebody through this. It's all good. I'm feeling really blessed in a good place right now, and just got to keep working through it.
Yeah, I think, I was just talking about this the other day that the brain's just mind is a fascinating thing that it's just like it keeps peeling back. It's like one thing peels back and another one you're like, wait, that's there? Like, something that you've always known, and then it flips, and it seems a never ending process. It's just really fascinating. So just being open to that and open and sharing, which I so appreciate that you did today, because I think there's many people that struggle silently with so many of the same things, just different stories, different flavors.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Amy.
And now for my mindful moments with this episode with Dr. Jackie Meyer. Now, we went through a number of areas in this story of Jackie, and I definitely want to make sure that everybody realizes that anything we discussed during this interview are the things that worked for Jackie or the things that worked for me. Everybody's got to go their own journey and make sure that they are talking to medical professionals and getting the right advice for their situations. That in no way are there any recommendations of the right way to go about trauma that you go through. But I really appreciated how vulnerable Jackie was opening up during this interview to really share what has gone on in her life and share in a way so that you can relate to the struggles. And I think a lot of times, and especially if you look at Jackie, you probably see her with success, think that it just came. And when you hear these stories, you realize that everybody has a story and everybody has gone through things that they decide whether to accept it in their life or to rise above it and keep moving and keep innovating for themselves. And I think Jackie is a great example of that. So we talked about the fact that when she grew up, her mom struggled with anxiety and some mental health issues that definitely affected Jackie and her sister. And so through that, by the time she was age 15, she had moved out of her house. And by the time a little later was living with her sister, who was 17 at the time. And due to that, she really found ways to survive in her own ways, which was truly about sticking to herself, where she didn't feel like she related to a lot of children at that time, which I think many of us can relate to, even if your story isn't as extreme. That that sometimes when you're a teenager, you just can't find your place and you find the things that help you survive. And so that's what Jackie did. And she was in a college town. So she was, admittedly acting out at that time, but still kept a head on her shoulders that she did not ever want to be in the situation that she had seen her mom in. And living this life of scarcity, of always worried about money or men, that she wanted to be dependent on herself and make sure she was independent. And so she graduated high school early and she went into finance because that meant money. And I think a lot of us don't really put more to it than that. And, when we find our college degree, we haven't really understood our purpose yet, but somehow it comes to speak to us along the way, which I think Jackie's story is so telling with that, she said that even when she was younger, she wanted to be a counselor, but she didn't feel like she was well enough herself in her own story that she could help others, where it has led her to be a coach, and now a coach in business and a coach with other accountants that are trying to move into this tax planning realm and make successful businesses out of it. But the coaching that she provides is not only from a business perspective, but an emotional perspective as well, of understanding what it's like to be a tax accountant, of understanding what it's like to have those hours and that be the norm. And when you want to break that norm, how you go about doing that. And part of doing that is looking at your business model and what really resonates with you and how you want to shift it. And part of it is taking care of yourself individually as well, whether that's with a therapist, whether that's with a coach, your advisors in your business. These third parties are so important to be able to give you guidance when you can't find the answers yourself. And that's why you're asked by your clients to be involved with their businesses, because they don't know what you know, and it's the same thing. So we really got into, after we went through her story, of just getting comfortable with vulnerability. And really vulnerability shows up in so many ways, where we might notice fear is coming up for us, but it's that fear either getting in the way, or it's a whisper to us that it is time for us to seek that outside party that can help us to get to that next level, whether that be in business, whether that be for us personally. But it's really being open to that and being vulnerable to the messages that are happening inside of us or outside of us that we don't even realize how all of those interconnect. And like she said, so much of this has intermingled into what she does in business, where now this is a part of becoming a customer there, where they do this kind of coaching to help you with getting it to the next level and passing over that fear. So I'm so thankful to Jackie for sharing her story. And it is quite a story, as so many of our guests have as well, but being open and vulnerable enough to know that by her talking about it, getting more comfortable talking about it, it helps others as well. And so I would say the same for you, is if it opened up anything for you listening to her story, make sure to listen to those whispers of where you might find that outside guidance, whether that be business coaches, therapists, consultants, whatever that is, a coach outside of yourself, so that you can achieve what you want and be able to get out of something that you may feel stuck, but there might be something in what you're doing that will create your next inspiration. So thank you so much for being a part of this podcast. It means so much to me to have the support of our audience, to listen to these stories, and hopefully you find lessons in them as well and share them with your friends and colleagues that it can help as well. And just remember that the energy that you create is contagious. And so stepping into that intentional energy is so important. And stories like this inspire us to do that. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Breaking Beliefs podcast. I hope you will take a moment to pause before entering back into your day to reflect on this podcast and note 1 to 2 actions you are inspired to do from today's conversation that you could incorporate into your life. To read the full blog and listen back to this episode or any other, you can find them at www.amyvetter.com/Breaking Beliefs podcast and related videos on my YouTube channel. For daily inspiration, follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Amy Vetter CPA. I hope that you will choose to like this and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and more, so that you can join us for more inspiration on our next episode.